My name is Elara, 34 years old. People always say tragedy strikes without warning, like lightning from a clear sky. But if I'm being honest, mine didn't come in a sudden flash. It crept in slowly, like water leaking behind a wall, quiet and steady, rotting everything from the inside out before anyone noticed. I'm a music teacher. I've taught piano since I was 16, and if there's one thing I know, it's that silence can be more dangerous than sound. For me, the silence started at home, inside the walls I thought were built from love. For years, I believed I had the perfect picture: a husband I'd grown up with, a daughter who lit up my entire world, and routines that felt like safety. Matteo and I were high school sweethearts. Our first kiss had been in the dusty band room, his lips brushing mine, while the trumpet section practiced scales in the next hallway. A week after graduation, when I found out I was pregnant, there wasn't even a pause. He proposed in the smallest park in town, sweaty hands, crooked grin, and we married before summer ended. We moved into a cramped apartment near my parents, with thin walls and a leaky faucet that never stopped dripping. But it was ours, and we filled it with laughter, late-night ramen noodles, and lullabies sung off-key. For years, I thought we were happy, or at least I thought I was. Our daughter, Lena, became the center of everything. She was sharp and witty, the kind of child who said things that made adults pause because she saw through pretenses. At the dinner table, she'd make faces at mashed potatoes or tell jokes that sent us into helpless laughter. We didn't have money, but we had rituals. Friday night movies with popcorn, baking disasters on rainy Sundays, pillow forts that stayed up far too long in the living room. And Matteo, in those early days, he used to text me in the middle of his shift just to say, "I miss you." Those little words made me feel like the luckiest woman alive. But happiness doesn't always leave in a storm. Sometimes it dissolves quietly. It started when Lena was about 10. Matteo began working late, at first once a week, then twice, then so often that dinner without him became normal. He said he had networking drinks, team dinners, weekend golf games, and seminars. He still came home. He still kissed me on the cheek. But the warmth in his eyes dimmed, replaced by something blank, absent. I didn't push. I told myself he was tired, stressed, that the economy was rough and everyone was stretched thin. He hadn't changed jobs or departments. Whenever I asked who he was meeting, his answer was vague. No one you know. I tried to sound supportive, but my voice always betrayed me. Too soft, too unsure, as if even I didn't believe myself anymore. Eventually, his updates shrank to single-line texts. Eating late. Don't wait up. The kind of message that left me staring at a cold dinner plate until my appetite vanished. I stopped setting 3 plates at the table. Lena noticed, too. She didn't say anything, but I caught her scraping his untouched food into the trash more than once. So we made our own little world. Just the two of us. Movie nights. Piano duets. Her small hands stumbling over scales while I guided her gently. Midnight baking experiments where flour dusted our hair like snow. It wasn't the family I had pictured, but it was something. Still, I missed him. Even when I hated myself for missing him, I did. I had dreams once. Dreams of opening my own studio. Nothing grand, just a modest soundproof room with space for a piano, soft blue walls, shelves for music books. I even carried paint swatches in my wallet for years. But our life stayed in rentals, and that dream stayed folded in the corner of my mind, like sheet music I couldn't play yet. One Saturday morning, I decided to speak. Matteo was home, which had become rare. Lena had slept over at her best friend Lily's house, and the apartment felt strangely quiet without her chatter. I brewed his coffee and placed it on the counter where he sat scrolling on his phone. He didn't look up. "Hey," I started carefully, sliding the mug toward him. "I've been thinking, maybe we should look into buying." He glanced up, eyebrows raised. "Buying what?" "A house," I said softly. "Even something small, something that's ours. Lena's getting older. I'd love to set up a proper studio at home." He laughed. Not a chuckle, not even amused. A sharp, mocking laugh that cut me in half. "Elara, I'm 36. If we take out a mortgage now, we'll be in debt until retirement, assuming we even make it that far. And anyway, we missed the window. You're supposed to buy when your kid is little, raise them there. What's the point now?" I swallowed hard. It's not about Pinterest boards, it's about independence. Security. You hate paying rent. He grabbed his keys without looking at me. "I'm not talking about this. We can't afford it. End of story." And then he left. No kiss, no goodbye. The coffee sat untouched, steam fading into nothing. That night, I stood by the kitchen window, staring at the rain sliding down the glass. Lena was still out. I didn't even know if Matteo was coming home. By 10:30, I had checked my phone a dozen times. By 11, I was pacing, heart pounding with a desperation I hated. And then I did something reckless. I grabbed my keys and drove. He hadn't asked me to pick him up, and I didn't even know for sure where he was. But earlier in the week, he'd mentioned the commuter train, something about drinks downtown. It was stupid, irrational, but I missed him, missed us. Maybe if he saw me waiting, maybe if we drove home together, it would stir something buried deep. I imagined silence in the car, but not angry silence. Maybe we'd talk. Maybe he'd tell me where his heart had gone. The rain misted softly as I parked near the station, a block from the platform. The lot was nearly empty, lit by the flickering glow of a single street lamp. I leaned back in my seat and stared at the arrival screen glowing through the wet windshield. A train pulled in. Commuters trickled out, umbrellas popping open like dark flowers. And then I saw him. Matteo. His gray coat collar turned up against the rain. His stride easy, casual. But he wasn't alone. Beside him walked a woman holding a red umbrella. She was the kind of pretty that made you look twice. Subtle, polished, with soft lipstick and a tan coat. And there was a boy, maybe 5 or 6, wearing a yellow backpack with a cartoon shark on it. The woman said something. Matteo laughed. Then, without hesitation, he kissed her. On the mouth. The boy reached up and grabbed Matteo's hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. My body froze. My breath stopped. The buzzing in my ears drowned out everything else, the station, the rain, the world. And I didn't notice the light turn red, or the truck barreling from the left. All I remember is the slam, the way my body lifted, the crunch of glass and metal and bone, and then nothing. Just blackness, like sinking into the deepest part of the ocean. The first thing I felt was cold. The second was absence. When I forced my eyes open, the ceiling above me was blinding white. The sterile smell of disinfectant mixed with the faint beep of machines made it clear I wasn't home. My chest tightened as I tried to move, but only one leg responded. Panic climbed up my throat like fire. I yanked at the blanket covering me, desperate to see. And then I screamed. My left leg was gone, clean off below the knee. No warning, no gradual reveal, just bandaged gauze and empty space where a part of me had been only days ago. The scream tore out of me raw, splitting the silence in two. A nurse rushed in, her voice a blur of calm instructions I couldn't hear. And then Lena. My daughter, my sweet girl, tears streaking her face as she tried to smile for me. "You're awake," she whispered, brushing damp hair from my forehead with shaking hands. Oh, thank God. My throat cracked, the words barely making it out. What happened? Her lips trembled. There was an accident at the station. A truck. Her voice broke. I'll get the doctor, and I'll call Dad. Before I could say anything, she was gone, leaving me drowning in a sea of confusion. The next hours blurred into fragments. Doctors in soft tones explained things I couldn't comprehend. Nerve trauma, miraculous survival, prosthetic options. Their words floated over me like smoke I couldn't grasp. I nodded, but inside I wasn't thinking about surgeries or wheelchairs. I was thinking about the red umbrella, the kiss, the boy's small hand gripping Matteo's like it had always belonged there. 3 days later, they discharged me. I was wheeled into our apartment, and for the first time, I saw my life through different eyes. The hallway I used to walk without thinking now felt like a maze. The kitchen counters towered above me. The bathroom was a battlefield of narrow doors and impossible angles. Every scrape of my wheelchair against the wall felt like failure. Matteo tried, at least in the beginning. He came home earlier than usual, cooked a few times, even offered to help me dress. But it was hollow, like he was ticking boxes on a chore list. His eyes never lingered. His touch was mechanical. Once, when I asked for help getting into bed, I caught him wincing as though the sight of me, half whole, broken, was too much to bear. "I'm sorry," I whispered, humiliated, staring at the floor. "Don't worry about it," he muttered, walking out of the room. Lena tried harder than both of us. She made me tea, fluffed pillows, painted my nails shaky but careful. She'd sit beside me late into the night, pretending to do homework while keeping an eye on me, but I couldn't meet her gaze. I felt like I had failed her, like half of me had died and the other half no longer knew how to mother. Days blurred. I drifted, sleeping during the afternoons, staring at the ceiling at night. I couldn't find words for the heaviness pressing on my chest. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, Matteo came in. He tossed his keys on the counter like always, but there was no hesitation in his voice, only that detached tone he used with customer service reps. "I think we should separate." The world tilted. I stared at him, stunned. "Are you serious?" "I can't do this, Elara. You're different now. This is too heavy. The emotions, the helplessness." He ran a hand through his hair. "I didn't sign up to be a caregiver." His words hit me like stones. I didn't sign up to lose a leg either. I wanted to scream it at him, wanted to throw something, anything. But my voice came out flat. "Fine." He blinked, thrown off by my lack of fight. "Seriously? You want a divorce?" "You'll get it," I said coldly, "but you're coming with me to tell your parents." His jaw twitched. "What? Why?" "Because I gave them 20 years of my life. They deserve to hear it from both of us." He hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, tomorrow." But that night, as Lena slept in her room, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My mind replayed the station in painful flashes, the umbrella, the kiss, the boy. The truth I had tried to bury clawed its way back up. Matteo didn't just drift away. He wasn't simply tired of me. There was more, something bigger. And if I was right, then the accident wasn't just a random tragedy. It was the price of me uncovering the secret he'd been hiding all along. My hands shook as I pulled down the old cardboard box from the closet, the one Matteo probably forgot even existed. Inside were SD cards from the dash cam of our previous car. I'd insisted on it years ago, after a near miss, a small safety measure he thought was unnecessary. We had traded in the car last year, but he never bothered to wipe the recordings. I slid an SD card into my laptop. Rain streaked across the windshield. The glow of the station platform filled the screen. My breath caught in my throat as the footage rolled on. And there it was, Matteo, the red umbrella, the woman, the kiss, the child reaching for his hand. My stomach dropped as if I were falling all over again. I paused the frame, zoomed in, stared until the image blurred with tears. It wasn't just an affair. It wasn't just betrayal. It was another life, another family. I must have replayed that clip 100 times. Every pause, every zoom, every still frame felt like a dagger twisting deeper. Matteo's laughter under the red umbrella wasn't just infidelity, it was intimacy, belonging. The way the boy clung to his hand told me everything. That child didn't just know him, he trusted him. I couldn't sleep. My body was exhausted, but my mind spun in relentless circles. The doctors had said trauma sometimes erases memory, but seeing that footage unlocked something buried. I remembered the exact moment before the crash, the way Matteo froze when his eyes landed on me across the platform. He didn't call out. He didn't move. He just stopped. By the time I finally shut the laptop, dawn had begun to bleed into the sky. I told myself one thing. If Matteo thought he could walk away clean, he had no idea who he was dealing with. Still, daylight forced me back into the fragile reality of my broken body. Life inside the apartment became a cruel game of survival. Every task I once took for granted turned into an obstacle. The counters were too high, the hallways too narrow, the doors too heavy. Even the carpet betrayed me, snagging the wheelchair wheels, bruising my knuckles every time I tried to push through. Lena became my lifeline. She balanced her teenage world, school, friends, exams, while quietly stepping into roles no 15-year-old should bear. She'd help me dress when I was too tired, sit beside me at the piano even when she had homework, make tea that always came out too sweet but still tasted like love. One night I found her sitting on the bathroom floor, clutching her math book and crying silently. She wiped her tears the second she saw me. "I'm fine, Mom." But I knew she wasn't. She was trying to carry both of us, and it was breaking her. That guilt crushed me more than the accident ever had. I felt like I'd failed her twice, once by letting Matteo drift away unnoticed, and again by letting my grief hollow me out when she needed me most. Matteo, meanwhile, slipped further and further into detachment. He still slept at home sometimes, but the man who shared my bed wasn't my husband anymore. He hovered on the edges of rooms, avoiding my eyes, his phone always buzzing face down on the counter. When he did help, it was with the air of someone fulfilling a chore, like folding laundry or taking out trash. I tried once to reach for him, to touch his hand, just a gesture of connection. He flinched, actually flinched, as though my skin burned him. The humiliation of that moment etched itself into me, deeper than any scar. And then came the Tuesday afternoon. He came home early, the sound of his keys hitting the counter sharp in the stillness. I knew something was different by the way he didn't even sit down first. He just looked at me with that business-like detachment, like I was a stranger he needed to cut ties with politely. "I think we should separate," he said. I blinked, stunned, my chest tightening. "Are you serious?" His voice didn't waver. "I can't do this, Elara. You're different now. This is too heavy. The constant emotions, the helplessness. I didn't sign up to be a caregiver." I felt his words like stones thrown at glass, each one shattering what little I had left. I wanted to scream at him, to remind him I hadn't signed up to lose a leg, to watch my life collapse around me. But the scream stayed lodged in my throat. What came out instead was cold, flat. "Fine." He froze like he hadn't expected me to agree. You'll get a divorce?" "You'll get it," I said, eyes burning holes into him. "But you're coming with me to tell your parents." His brows furrowed. "Why? That's unnecessary." "Because I gave them 20 years of my life. They deserve to hear it from both of us." He hesitated, then exhaled. "Tomorrow." I nodded once, as though it was settled. But the truth was, it was far from settled. Because while he thought tomorrow was about closure, for me, it was about revelation. That night, I sat awake long after Lena had gone to bed. My mind replayed the station footage like a broken record. Every time, I saw more. Her hand brushing his arm, his smile, the child leaning against him like it was the most natural thing. My stomach twisted as I realized this wasn't new. This wasn't fleeting. This was a second family, one he had nurtured in secret while ours withered in plain sight. I remembered how often he'd said, "Don't wait up," how he'd laughed off my suggestion of buying a house, how his phone was always face down, just out of reach. It all made sense now. I pulled out the bank statements I'd been too numb to question before, skimming through transfers that suddenly screamed betrayal. Small amounts at first, then larger. Names I didn't recognize. A townhouse lease I didn't remember signing. It was all there, the threads of a double life. My fingers shook as I gathered the evidence. I wasn't ready to confront him yet, not alone. But his parents, they had always idolized him. To them, Matteo was the golden son who could do no wrong. They needed to see the truth with their own eyes. And I needed them to know that I wasn't leaving this marriage because I was broken. I was leaving because he was. Tomorrow, he thought he'd walk into his parents' house with the upper hand. Tomorrow, he thought he'd paint me as the fragile wife who couldn't cope. But tomorrow, I would bring the storm. The night before we were supposed to visit his parents, I barely slept. My body ached from the accident, but my mind was sharper than it had been in months. Rage has a way of sharpening you, of cutting through fog. I sat in the living room, the glow of my laptop casting long shadows on the walls. The SD card lay beside me. The damning footage paused mid-frame. Matteo, lips pressed against hers, the boy's tiny hand gripping his. I zoomed in until their faces blurred into pixels, then zoomed out again, over and over. Proof. No matter how many times he tried to tell me I was imagining things, no matter how carefully he crafted his lies, this was real. Still, I needed more. I dug through drawers, pulled out dusty folders, sifted through piles of paperwork Matteo always insisted on handling. Credit card statements, phone bills, bank transfers. The pieces of his double life hid in plain sight, waiting for me to stitch them together. That night, I became someone else. Not the grieving wife, not the fragile patient in a wheelchair. I became a detective. The late-night texts about work dinners, they lined up with charges at upscale restaurants I'd never been to, the weekends away at seminars, hotel bookings under his name but with 2 guests listed. My stomach knotted tighter with every page I turned. And then I saw it. Transfers. Small at first, a few $100s, then growing into thousands, sent regularly to a woman named Ashley Pierce. My breath caught. The name felt foreign and intimate all at once. I copied the details, then opened a browser window. Fingers trembling, I searched. Within minutes, the pieces assembled themselves. Ashley Pierce, mid-30s, a marketing consultant. A suburban townhouse leased under both her and Matteo's names. Utilities split. Prepaid tuition at a private kindergarten for a boy named Logan. My throat closed. The boy. The one with the shark backpack. His name was Logan. I leaned back, my chest rising and falling in sharp bursts. Matteo hadn't just cheated. He hadn't just slipped into someone else's bed during late nights. He had built another life, a second family. And me? I had paid the price for stumbling across it. I stared at the glow of the screen until my eyes blurred with tears. Then I did something I'd never imagined myself doing. I picked up the phone and called a private investigator. The words tasted bitter. "I need confirmation," I whispered into the receiver. "Everything. Where he goes, who he sees, financial records, addresses, as much as you can find. Quickly." The man on the line didn't ask why. Maybe he didn't need to. People don't hire investigators for happy reasons. By morning, I had more than enough. Copies of birth certificates, bank statements, photographs. A paper trail so damning, even Matteo's smooth tongue couldn't talk its way out. Logan's birth certificate listed no father, but the PI confirmed what I already knew. Matteo had been present since the boy's birth. He'd signed school forms. He'd even been listed as an emergency contact. I sat there, numb, staring at the pile of evidence spread across the kitchen table. For years, I'd thought of our life as a duet. Sometimes clumsy, sometimes sweet, but always ours. Now I realized Matteo had been playing a symphony somewhere else, while letting me believe we were still in harmony. When Matteo wheeled me into his parents' house the next day, he had no idea what I carried in my bag. He thought he was about to frame himself as the weary husband, tied down by a wife too broken to keep up. He thought he would look noble for being honest. I almost pitied him, almost. His parents greeted us with warm smiles that faltered the second they saw me in the wheelchair. Bella gasped, clutching her chest. "Oh, sweetheart, you poor thing. We meant to visit the hospital, but—" "It's okay," I said gently, masking the storm beneath my skin. "I'm just glad we could come now." We sat in the living room. Matteo shifted in his chair, restless. I folded my hands neatly in my lap, waiting. Finally, he cleared his throat. "We're here because, well, things have changed. I think Elara and I should separate." Bella's eyes widened. "What? Matteo, after everything she's been through?" "It's not dramatic," he insisted quickly. "It's just, things are different. She's different. I don't think this is fair to either of us." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Landon, his father, narrowed his eyes. "Different how, son?" Matteo hesitated, then blurted, "She's disabled." The word landed like a slap. I stared at him, my voice quiet but firm. "The word is disabled, Matteo. Say it properly." Bella covered her mouth, stricken. "Oh, darling, we didn't know." "It's fine," I said, though nothing about this was fine. "I understand. Matteo wants out. I won't fight it." Matteo let out a sigh of relief, mistaking my calm for surrender. But then I reached into my bag, pulled out my laptop, and set it on the coffee table. The air shifted. "Before I sign anything," I said softly, "there's something I'd like you to see." Bella leaned forward, curiosity mixed with unease. Landon sat straighter, jaw tightening. Matteo's brows knit in confusion. I opened the file. The footage played. Rain streaking the windshield, the glow of the platform, Matteo stepping off the train. The red umbrella, the woman, the kiss, the boy's small hand gripping his. I paused the frame. Silence swallowed the room. Bella blinked, her voice trembling. "Matteo, is that—" "That's not Lena," Landon said, his tone sharp as glass. I turned the screen toward Matteo. "You didn't think I'd remember. You thought the crash erased it. But I saw you. I saw everything." The color drained from his face. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The living room seemed to shrink around us, the tick of the grandfather clock louder than any heartbeat. Matteo stared at the paused image on the laptop screen like it was a bomb about to go off. Bella's hand trembled against her lips. "Matteo, who is she? Who is that child?" Matteo opened his mouth, then closed it again. His jaw worked, but no sound came out. I could see the calculation in his eyes, the desperate scrambling for a lie big enough to smother the truth. I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms. "Don't strain yourself. I already know. His name is Logan. He's 6. The woman is Ashley Pierce. You've been transferring money to her for over a year. You're on the lease for their townhouse. Utilities, furniture, prepaid tuition. She lists you as an emergency contact." Bella gasped, like the words had punched the air from her lungs. Landon's face hardened, his knuckles white as he clenched the arm of his chair. "You went through my things?" Matteo snapped suddenly, his voice sharp, defensive. I smiled, cold. No, Matteo, I went through mine. You left the trail yourself. I just followed it. The silence that followed was unbearable. Even Lena, sitting on the edge of the couch, glanced between us with wide eyes. She had insisted on coming, wanting to understand why her father seemed half gone from their lives. Now she was watching everything unravel in real time. Bella finally whispered, "Matteo, is it true?" His shoulders slumped. "I never meant for it to happen like this. It got out of hand." "Out of hand?" My voice cracked like glass. "You built a second life. You didn't just cheat. You abandoned your family in slow motion, and when I stumbled across it, I got hit by a truck. Do you even realize what you cost me?" Matteo flinched, but I didn't stop. The dam had broken. "You knew I saw you that night," I said, my voice low, trembling with fury. "You froze when our eyes met. You knew I remembered eventually. That's why you pushed for a quick divorce. Not because of my leg, not because you couldn't handle caregiving, because you didn't want to get caught." Bella's tears spilled over. "Matteo, how could you?" Landon's voice was steel. "Do you have any idea what you've done to this family?" Matteo ran his hands over his face, muttering, "I just wanted—" "What?" I cut in sharply. "2 perfect lives? One with a loyal wife you could discard, and one with a shiny new family you could parade around without baggage? You wanted to start over while pretending we didn't exist." The weight of my words filled the room like smoke. Matteo's face crumpled, his composure slipping. But still, he didn't apologize. He didn't reach for Lena. He didn't look at me. I closed the laptop gently, the click of the hinge sounding final. I didn't come here for apologies. I didn't come here for pity. I came here for clarity. Bella reached out, her voice breaking. "Elara, we didn't know." "I know you didn't," I said softly, "but now you do." The air grew heavy again, charged with something close to despair. Landon leaned forward, his gaze fixed on his son. "You've shamed us. You've shamed her. You've shamed your daughter. And for what? A secret life you thought you could juggle forever?" Matteo's lips parted, but Landon cut him off with a raised hand. "Don't bother answering. We've heard enough." I felt the ache in my chest deepen, but underneath it was a sharper, stronger current. Resolve. For months, I had felt like a broken woman trapped in a cage of guilt and grief. But sitting there, watching Matteo unravel under the truth, I realized something. I still had power. I straightened in my wheelchair, my voice steady. "I'll sign the divorce papers, Matteo. I'll let you have your second chance with your shiny new life. But there's a price." Bella looked at me sharply. "How much do you want?" I shook my head. "Not money. Independence. A home that fits me now. A space where I can teach, move freely, and live without being reminded every second of what I've lost." Matteo scoffed bitterly. "That'll cost hundreds of thousands." I met his eyes, my tone ice cold. "Then you better start working overtime, Matteo." The room fell silent again. Bella looked panicked, torn between her son and the truth staring her in the face. Landon, however, was steady. His voice left no room for debate. "We'll make it happen." Matteo whipped his head toward him. "Dad!" Landon's glare cut him off. "No, you've made your bed. Now you'll pay for it. Every dime, until she has the life she deserves." Matteo's mouth opened, but no words came. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him, pale and hollow under his father's judgment. For the first time in months, I felt something like control return to me. Not happiness, not yet, but a direction, a future. And Matteo? He was the one left stranded in the ruins he built with his own hands. I don't think I'll ever forget the way Matteo looked in that moment. Caught, cornered, stripped of every excuse he'd ever rehearsed. For once, the man who had always carried himself like he owned every room sat silent, crushed by the weight of his own choices. Bella clutched her rosary necklace so tightly I thought it might snap. "Elara, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Are you certain this is what you want? A new home? We can work something out. Money, assistance." I held her gaze. "This isn't about handouts. It's about independence. Every day in that apartment is a reminder of what I lost, of how impossible simple things have become. I want a space built for me, not one I have to bend myself to fit into." Landon nodded once, his eyes never leaving Matteo. "She's right, and you're going to make sure she gets it." Matteo bristled, his voice sharp. "Why is everyone acting like I'm the villain here? Things happen. People grow apart. I didn't plan." "You didn't plan?" I cut in, fury burning through my calm. "You signed leases, transferred money, paid tuition. That isn't drifting apart, Matteo. That's building a new life while dismantling the old one. You didn't plan? No, you planned it very well. His face twisted, shame and anger warring inside him. You're twisting this. I didn't want to hurt anyone. You didn't want to get caught, I corrected, my tone slicing through the room. The silence that followed was suffocating. Lena sat curled on the couch, her arms wrapped around her knees, eyes shining with unshed tears. She hadn't spoken through the confrontation, but her silence was louder than anything else. She'd seen her father laid bare, and nothing could ever make her unsee it. Bella finally broke the silence. What exactly do you need, Elara? I drew in a breath, steady. A single-level wheelchair-accessible home, wide doorways, ramps disguised as garden paths, an ADA-compliant kitchen, open concept. And one more thing, a large studio room with proper soundproofing, lighting, and a Yamaha grand piano. A place where I can teach, earn, and live again. Matteo barked a bitter laugh. You're asking for the moon. No, I said quietly. I'm asking for what you owe me. Bella's eyes flicked between us, torn. Landon, however, leaned forward, his voice steady as steel. It'll be done. Matteo snapped his head toward him. Dad, you can't be serious. I'm deadly serious, Landon interrupted, his tone final. You've disgraced this family, Matteo. You'll take responsibility. You'll cover every expense until that house is complete, and you'll make the payments until the last dime is settled. Matteo's face drained of color. This is insane. No, Landon thundered, his fist striking the arm of his chair. What's insane is betraying your wife, your child, and this family, then standing here pretending you're the victim. Enough. The silence afterward was heavy, final. Bella wiped her tears with shaking hands. Lena pressed her face into her knees, her small shoulders trembling. I placed a hand on her back, whispering, It's going to be okay, baby. She nodded weakly, but didn't lift her head. Matteo finally spoke, his voice raw. You'll ruin me. I met his eyes, calm and unyielding. No, Matteo, you ruined yourself. I'm just collecting what's left. That night, I wheeled myself out of his parents' home with Lena by my side. The air outside was cool, crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Matteo trailed behind us, his figure hunched, smaller than I had ever seen. He looked like a man who had lost everything, and maybe he finally realized he had. As the car pulled away, I glanced at Lena. She stared out of the window, her reflection ghosting against the glass. Mom, she said softly, are we going to be okay? My throat tightened, but I forced my voice steady. We're going to be better than okay. We're going to start over, on our terms. She turned to me then, her eyes glistening with both pain and hope. I believe you. And for the first time since the accident, I believed myself too. 3 months later, I rolled into the foyer of my new home. It was everything I had envisioned in those sleepless nights after the crash, except it was real now. Warm wooden floors, stretched beneath me, with no thresholds to trip my wheels. Wide doorways welcomed me without resistance. Smart lighting glowed softly at my voice's command. The ramps outside were disguised as winding garden paths lined with lavender and roses, so natural you wouldn't know they'd been built for function. But the heart of it, the part that made my throat tighten with gratitude, was the studio. A spacious, soundproofed room, painted in the soft blue I had once carried on paint swatches in my wallet. Adjustable height benches lined one wall, shelves stacked neatly with metronomes, books, and sheet music. In the center, a brand new Yamaha grand piano gleamed, its polished black surface reflecting the sunlight streaming in through high windows. I wheeled myself closer, reached out, and let my fingertips glide across the cool keys. The first chord I played reverberated through the room, rich and full. Tears welled in my eyes, not from sorrow this time, but from something that felt dangerously close to joy. Word spread quickly. Soon, my studio was full of children, eager to learn from the piano teacher in the wheelchair. I worried at first that I'd be a curiosity, but I wasn't. I became a story, yes, but one rooted in resilience. Parents whispered about how I understood rhythm, patience, and struggle. Kids laughed in my hallways, their small fingers stumbling over keys until they found music. And Lena, my sweet Lena, thrived here. She volunteered during lessons, helping younger kids carry sheet music or adjust their stools. She brought her own keyboard into the studio, practicing beside me until the evening stretched late. One night, as I was closing up, she turned to me and said, her voice alive with certainty, "I want to go to music school, maybe even open another studio with you someday." I cried quietly that night, not wanting her to see, because her dream was the most beautiful melody I'd ever heard. Matteo, on the other hand, withered in the background. He came by only once after the house was finished. He was thinner, his skin sallow, the confident man I once knew, replaced by someone diminished. He held out an envelope, part of the financial agreement. "I'm supposed to drop this off," he said, his voice flat. I took it without a word. He lingered, his eyes darting toward Lena's room. "She doesn't answer my messages." "She knows enough," I said evenly, "that you were unfaithful, that you left. She doesn't want details. She doesn't want lies." His throat worked as he swallowed. "And Logan?" I raised an eyebrow. "That's your problem now." I didn't slam the door. I didn't scream or curse him, though God knows part of me wanted to. I didn't ask why he never confessed, why he let me believe I was the weight dragging him down, why he thought I was too broken to be worth loving. I didn't need to, because I had already taken back everything he tried to strip from me, my independence, my music, my hope. 6 months later, Lena and I sat on the back porch, watching the sun dip low behind the trees. The air smelled faintly of citrus candles, and inside, the house hummed with faint echoes of laughter from my students earlier that day. Lena had her keyboard on her lap, playing a new melody she'd been working on. It was slow, thoughtful, full of hope. I closed my eyes and let the notes wash over me. My leg was gone, my marriage was gone, but I wasn't. I was here, still teaching, still playing, still moving forward. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting for Matteo to come home, because I had already come home, to myself.